Meanwhile, on the comic box. Comics. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. I am Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, and I hope you guys had a really good holiday season. I certainly did. I was able to catch up on some things, started reading some stuff, read some new stuff, but we are not talking about any of that this week because this is the Comic Box's best of 2016 episode. I can't make that note. The thing that you blow because it's New Year's. I don't know. Clearly, the break did me good, right? Point being, Void and Beej did their two-part best of 2016 episodes, both of which I enjoyed. There was some good comic-y goodness in there. And I have been thinking about this for weeks, trying to figure it out. Now, I haven't been, I didn't want to, really sit and dive deep and be like, well, this one on these merits and stuff. There's plenty of lists all over the internet that you can find that do that when trying to find the best comic books of 2016. For me, I wanted to be able to do the quick look back, and it's, all right, what's my first reaction? And then I dwelled on it a little bit, and I believe that I have slimmed things down as best as I can. So, without further ado, we're not going to do Weekly Geekery, we're not going to do news. This is just our best of 2006 episode. So let's move straight into one of the big ones, the one that I think a lot of you listeners out there would probably be able to weigh in on the most, the best comic book movie of 2016. The list I have put together includes Deadpool. Clap, remember Deadpool, shot of Ryan Reynolds as he nods and smiles in the audience. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Captain America, Civil War. X-Men Apocalypse. Suicide Squad. And Doctor Strange. I believe I put those in order of when they came out this year. First, I want to throw out my honorable mention, which will probably reveal to you what my favorite is. My honorable mention goes to Captain America Civil War. I really wanted this to be my top, and it is on Netflix now, kids. So if you have not seen it yet or would like to see it again, go and watch it. I have not rewatched Civil War since seeing it in the theater, which may have impacted my decision here. I really liked it. It definitely gets my honorable mention because of the feels of just seeing Spider-Man and Captain America together. I get people are pumped for the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer where you see Spider-Man and Iron Man, as they're flying through the air there and Spider-Man swinging through the air there together. But for me, for whatever reason, it was Spider-Man and Captain America, and seeing those two on screen together gave me this nerd boy joy that I wanted to get by seeing Batman and Superman on screen together. But for that movie, it was more of just the sitting back and being like, wow, this is actually the first time we've ever seen Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all standing next to one another on screen. How cool is that? But I didn't get the ultra nerd feels the way that I did with Civil War. That said, my favorite comic book movie of 2016 is Deadpool, because it is exactly what you want it to be. You knew it wasn't going to have a detailed plot. You knew it wasn't going to have a high budget. You knew that a lot of that movie was going to come out of improvisation, and it did, and it was still great. And for a comic book movie to set out having a goal, this is the one that I feel achieved it best. I felt like all of the movies that we got this year were pretty good. Doctor Strange was certainly fantastic. Suicide Squad, not so much. I think that one might have been the bigger flop to me, even compared to Batman v Superman and Batman flat out murdering so many people. X-Men Apocalypse, I feel like if it was the first X-Men movie we ever got, we would all be flabbergasted, and it would be up there with some of our favorite comic book movies of all time. Unfortunately, it was just yet another X-Men movie, and why is everything so gray kind of flick. So Deadpool wins it. The performances were spot on. The CG Colossus I thought was great. The fact that it was being self-referential about its small budget and the people working on it. And even though there's all sorts of, plot holes like there are in everything else, it was the most effective of all of the comic book movies of this year. Though Civil War certainly did a good job of bringing us back after Age of Ultron. In any case, I keep jumping around. Deadpool wins. Let's move on to the best comic book / Netflix show of 2016, because Netflix generally gets bundled together with television shows at the Emmys and that sort of thing, so I wanted them to be in one category. The shows that I have a massive list of comic book related shows, but here are the ones that I decided are my top 5. Daredevil Season 2, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, The Flash, and Ultimate Spider-Man, the cartoon, which I'm not caught up on, but I have seen what Netflix has of Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, very quickly, I want to say a couple things about the ones that did not make this list. First, there's The Walking Dead, which is always a good time and a very intense show, and I have only seen the first episode where Negan is introduced of the new season, but beyond that, I am caught up, and I do really like The Walking Dead. Every time I see that show, I really get pulled into their world. It just, for me, didn't make the top 5. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I am also watching, but I'm watching it along with the We Can Do This All Day podcast over by the folks at Storywonk. So I am still only in Season 1, and I didn't think it was fair for me to throw that up on this list. And also, I probably don't think it would make my top 5 anyway. Preacher, I only got to see the pilot because that was free on the AMC thing. This is a show I really, really want to see, though, because I love the comic book. And we lost Steve Dillon this year, the artist and co-creator of the character. But I got to wait for that to come on to Netflix or some sort of streaming service before I can really dive in. But I am really interested to see that show. But the ones that made my list, the reason that they are in my top 5 is every single one of them has some of that comic booky feelness. Like I'm really going off of sort of some of the nerd feels that you get when you watch these shows. Daredevil Season 2 gave us the Punisher, gave us Elektra, it gave us just a great scene sort of continuing to develop Wilson Fisk, and we're seeing Daredevil now being out there more active. I really enjoyed the season. Jessica Jones was, I feel, a good, if not direct adaptation of the comic book. Less of a geeky feels thing, more of just good storytelling. Luke Cage had some really fun, geeky moments and a lot of Easter eggs that were sort of dropped in. And Netflix, obviously, is just killing it with their shows. Flash is truly a comic book brought to life, and Ultimate Spider-Man is exactly that amount of levity. Like, if you want to have just a good superhero watching time, watch the Ultimate Spider-Man episode with Deadpool in it. However, my winner for Best Comic Book TV / Netflix Show of 2016 is The Flash. The Flash. And again, I have not seen this season. Like, the one thing I didn't do over break was catch up on TV shows that are comic book related. Anyway, I went and watched Westworld instead. Sue me, people. I wanted to go see Westworld. I kept hearing so much about it. Off topic yet again. The Flash, like I said, it is a comic book brought to life. I love how the writers and everybody on that show just goes for it. They're like, we're going to do King Shark, because why not? While I am not always a fan of all of the CW drama that needs to be pretty white kids with problems, because they're pretty white kids with problems. Pretty white kids with problems. It's a Mad TV sketch. Go look it up. It's hilarious. I love that they go for it. So if I had to pick the best comic book TV show on air right now, I would point people towards The Flash, because they have episodes that hit you in the feels where he's like talking to his mom on the phone and, you're like, oh man, that's so sad. And at the same time, they're willing to just go and do silly goofiness and have fun as a show. And that's the thing that I feel the rest of the Arrowverse lacks. I've heard Supergirl is very much that way as well. I just haven't watched as much of it. So with that, let's move on to my first actual comic book category. I have 3, I guess, comic book-ish related things. The first one is the best regular read comic book of 2016. And the reason I'm calling it my best regular read is because my other category is the best new comic, for things I had never read before this year. And then I have a favorite graphic novel or trade that I bought this year. So this is my favorite monthly ongoing. It can include things that I picked up for the first time this year, but in general, it's the ones that I stuck with. Now, this list was really, really hard for me because I added it up as best as I could, and I believe that I have read 40 different comic book titles, not counting relaunches like going from Green Lantern to Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps or anything like that. 40 different titles in 2016, and usually multiple issues of each of those titles. That is a massive list for me to try and think back through, and that is exactly the reason why I didn't do like a best comic book cover of 2016 or something like that. Also because this isn't a visual medium, and I can do my best to paint you pictures with words. I like to fancy myself a writer, but I also like to fancy myself somebody who wants to go and be lazy on a Saturday morning. So with that in mind, I am just not doing myself any good here. My top 5 best regular comic book reads of 2016 are Champions by Mark Waid and Humberto Ramos. Probably said that wrong. Apologies. Green Lanterns by Sam Humphries and Robson Roca. This is one of the 2 most recent ones as of Rebirth Green Lantern titles. Lazarus by Greg Rucka and Michael Lark. And this one gets sort of a pass. I'm reading Lazarus in trade format, but I read a lot of it, so I'm still considering it a regular comic book. I get to bend the rules because they're my rules. Next is Scarlet by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev. And the last one is Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and Mike Allred. And my winner for the best regular read comic book, the best comic book series, if you will, of 2016 is Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and Mike Allred. This really surprised me. I assumed it was going to be something Green Lantern or something by Greg Rucka, and it wasn't. It ended up being Silver Surfer, and here's why. If we needed one thing in 2016, especially if you were a person on social media at all, the thing we needed as comic book fans was a book that makes us smile. And there were several good ones of these this year, from Giant Days to Lumberjanes, but Silver Surfer is my personal pick of 2016 because unlike all of the other books, most of which were very serious, like most of the books that I read this year, a lot of the stories that I get into are very serious. So Silver Surfer, my pick for 2016, my book of the year, it had a sense of wonder, which is the thing that I feel like a lot of other books were missing, even the really fun ones. There are books that made me smile, but this is the only book that was able to give me feels on a spectrum, because there are sad issues, but almost every single one ends with a single part story most of the time. So you could pick up any issue of Silver Surfer, it will catch you up on the first page, with sort of a recap of what's been happening, and it'll usually be a single issue story, and it is always a sense of wonder in that story that can make you smile. And the art is perfect, and the writing is perfect, and even though I'm a big fan of the philosophical Silver Surfer stuff, or the very cosmic Ron Mars Silver Surfer stuff from the 90s, this is just, when I get my books each month, this is the first one that I go to because I'm just so excited to see what comes next, because I never have any idea. And that is, to me, what comic books should be. So hooray for Silver Surfer, my top comic book of 2016. But now we have my favorite new comic book for me of 2016. So when I say favorite, I guess on my outline I wrote best. So I said best comic book for me personally, hence my favorite of 2016. And I did something special here. I excluded my other top 5 picks because several of those, like Champions, are ones that I didn't start reading until this year. But I wanted to mix it up in order to give you listeners a larger number of series that you could go out and listen to. So my top 5 best new comics for 2016 are The Black Monday Murders by Jonathan Hickman and Tom Coker, Southern Bastards by Jason Aaron and Jason Latour, Unworthy Thor by Jason Aaron and Olivier Coipel. Doing my best on that one. The New Wonder Woman, which is just called Wonder Woman, it's not new in the title. Wonder Woman by Greg Rucka, Liam Sharp, and Nicholas Scott. And Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang. Also very hard for me to do. As you can see, a lot of these are not humorous books. Again, there was a lot of serious stuff going on this year. And while I talk about the need for something like Silver Surfer, I also like having, that really good storytelling. Like Unworthy Thor, there are, I think, 3 issues out right now. And it's getting back to that Thor God of Thunder stuff that I loved so much. A lot of top 10 lists, or even top 5 lists, or best comics of the year lists, or best series of the year lists that I've seen online have the current Thor run with the female Thor on there by Jason Aaron. And I don't question that. It's certainly a very good book, and you can tell that he's going somewhere and he's building a story. It's just that classic, really epic, we are gods doing what gods do, calling down the thunder kind of stuff is really where I dig on Thor. But my best new comic for 2016 is The Black Monday Murders by Jonathan Hickman and Tom Coker. Big thanks to 2 British nerds, Sava over there, for suggesting this to me because I went out and got it and it hooked me right away. I like this book for several reasons. First, every issue is much longer than a standard comic book issue. So when you pick it up, you know that you have something that's going to take you a little longer to read, something that has more for you to go back and check out while you wait for the next issue. I think there are only 4 issues of this series so far, but the art is perfect. It's moody. It is not your stereotypical. This is not a superhero story. This is a story about a select group of families engaging in occult black magic in order to make themselves money and to control the world around them through financial dealings. And there's a lot going on here. The whole thing is filled with a language nobody understands and weird symbols, and you only get small translations here and there. I am just really curious to see where this goes. I have never dug into a Jonathan Hickman series before. My understanding is this is kind of where he lives, in these really big, expansive stories that are also mysterious, where he likes to reveal things as he goes along. He did a big run on Fantastic Four, and then Future Foundation, I think, was still him. So I'm really looking forward to it, so long as it doesn't take too long to get there. Otherwise, we will run into issues like with Moon Knight, which also was moody and interesting and had a lot of mystery going on and art that really fit that sort of mysterious tone, but just it didn't go anywhere fast enough for me, so I wasn't able to hang on. And lastly, my last category for 2016 is my favorite trade/graphic novel that I bought this year. I was very specific in saying it that way in the ones that I bought this year, because some of these came out before 2016, but they're the ones that I personally purchased and read, and some of these are even things that I had read before. But that doesn't mean they can't still be the favorite thing that I read this year. You can go back to a favorite book, and in my opinion, that can still make your best of that year because it's the best things you did that year. So my top 5 graphic novels or trade paperbacks of the year are the Lock and Key complete, almost complete set that I bought. I posted pictures on Twitter when I got it. I was super pumped to get it. I was then disappointed to find out it didn't include the Guide to the Keys and some of the stories that take place before this one. There was some very nice, touching prequel stories. But the Lock and Key trade set, Black Magic, which is another series by Greg Rucka and Nicholas Scott, which I've also talked about on the show before. And that was it's an image book, so it only cost me $10 to get the first volume, and it was a blind buy. I looked at the art on the cover, I saw the name of the artist, I saw the name of the writer, and said, I don't see this team steering me wrong, and I picked it up, and it ended up being a really, really interesting read. Next are the Lazarus trades, because I splurged this year, and I bought all of the existing trades of Greg Rucka's Lazarus. Scarlet by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev. This one is in 2 categories, but they finally put out the first trade paperback collecting the first volume of Scarlet. Like, it's on an imprint of Marvel, which is to say like a subsection of Marvel called Icon that doesn't even exist anymore. Just to give you an idea of, you know, how long it's taken for that book to finally come out and then finally get collected. So I was super excited to be able to pick that up. And then I bought the Infinity Gauntlet Aftermath trade, the Infinity War trade, and the Infinity War Aftermath trade. And I'm clumping all of those together because it's that one big Jim Starlin Infinity Saga that has so many parts to it. But just sort of in preparation of Infinity Gauntlet stuff, I wanted to read through all of that info just to kind of nerd out, I guess, on my own. And my winner for the best trade / graphic novel that I bought this year is, drumroll, Black Magic. Black Magic. There was no way we were going to get through the show without me giving at least one tip of the hat to Greg Rucka. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest, guys. It was going to happen. But I really like this book, and I love that the art is almost all black and white, except when it's dealing with magic. Then when it is dealing with magic, you have color, and it gives it that... It separates it and makes you focus on it more, and it's just a very cool element to an already gorgeous book. I mean, Nicholas Scott's art is absolutely fantastic in here. I am trying to remember if this is a thing where I have to say it's sort of an adult book. So I don't know if I would say, hey, kids, go pick up Black Magic. I suppose if I said that anyway, the parents would probably give me a sideways glance. But for those of you out there who want to just see something very cool, I suggest it. And I am trying to think there might be some nudity and stuff in there as well. We'll call that one adults only, but definitely highly recommended. So to recap, our top winners of this year are the film Deadpool, Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and Mike Allred. Seriously, I mean this. Pick up any issue. Like, if you go to buy them digitally, a lot of times if it's an older issue, it'll be cheaper. Pick up one of those. Like, and I want to say it was up for an award for Best Single Issue, one of their issues as well. And it doesn't matter which volume. There was the volume pre-Secret War, and then they literally just picked up right where they left off. They did this great final issue of, it looks like the universe is, you know, folding in on itself, or it looks like the universe is dying something, but then they're back, and they keep going. So you can literally pick up any issue of Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and Mike Allred, and you will have a really great time. Then Black Monday Murders, or The Black Monday Murders, and finally Black Magic Volume 1. And that is it for this week. It's a short one this week, you guys. I just wanted to get all that 2016 stuff out there. Next week, stay tuned. I am going to dig into the things I am most excited for 2017. And then perhaps we will go back into our previous format that we were playing around with, where I will throw something at you guys to read for next week, which we will then talk about. But for right now, I'm sticking on the New Year thing. So go watch the things I suggested, read the things that I suggested, so long as they are appropriate for you. And I will bring you guys a really good suggestion next week. And if things work out, possibly a co-host, or a, if not all the time co-host, a maybe co-host. Things are in the works, you guys. Things are in the works behind the scenes. As always, please star ratings and reviews on iTunes. If you didn't get me a present this holiday season, it's okay, I love you anyway. But if you could go leave me a star rating or a review on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen to this show, it would really, really help out. It builds the audience, which builds our community, which gives us more people to talk to and more great suggestions for comics that people can read. And that's what I'm going for here. So star ratings and reviews, please. In order to do that, you need to, in iTunes, for example, you have to search for The Comic Box and then find this podcast and tap on it or click on it as though you have never actually heard of it. It is kind of a stupid route for leaving a review, but you can't do it just from your, subscribed podcast list or anything like that. You have to go through the weird process. So search for The Comic Box or The Comic Box Podcast, It'll pop up. You'll see the logo. Click on that, and then you can go to reviews, and it will allow you to add a star rating and a review. If you would do that, I would greatly appreciate it. This show is part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. You can find information on all of our shows and sign up for some very cool email updates every time one of our shows releases at geektogeekcast.net. If you want to talk to me, throw me some suggestions. Tell me what you guys thought of these 2016 picks. Did you disagree with me? Are there books that you thought should have been included on the list, and I am just a terrible comic book fan for not even mentioning them? Come tell me. I'm on Twitter, at Rob's Comic Box. I have a personal Twitter where you can find me at Knowby, at KNOWBY, where I talk about things not related to comic books. You can also come and talk to all of us in the Geek to Geek podcast network community at our subreddit, reddit.com/geek/ starting the new year off in a really great way here. reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast. And that is Geek to Geek, the TO in the middle, not the number 2. Geek to Geek Cast is our subreddit. Come, let's talk comic books. I love talking comic books, especially with people who read things I don't, because that's how I get introduced to great new series like the Black Monday Murders. Finally, I have an email account. If you're the kind of person that has something very long that you feel you need to say to me after this episode, email me at thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com. And that is it for this week. I'm closing the comic box. No, screw that. I am throwing the lid open on the comic box so I can spill them all over the floor and rediscover some old favorites in 2017. I hope you do the same. Figure out what it was you loved about them. These are the things that we want to talk about. And then, of course, head to your local comic store, throw them a few bucks, try out something new. That's what the new year is all about. So I will see you guys next time. Have a fantastic week. And got a list of the best of 2016.